Hey everyone. Most people believe that there is a trade off between impact and income. That if you really want to help people, you should charge less. And if you charge more, well, you must be greedy or salesy or out of integrity. That belief is really keeping more coaches, consultants, and experts stuck. Um, than lack of skill, ever could. So today I want to challenge that idea completely and show you why pricing your offer at, 3,000, 5,000, $10,000 or more is often the most ethical, impactful, and aligned decision that you can make. Not for ego, not for flexing, but for results, right? We're basing it on results, not trading time for dollars. And I go into this a lot in my program. It's the first thing we work on is getting rid of that employee mentality or trading hours for dollars, um, because that's what employees do, right? And when we have our own business, we don't want to create another job for ourselves. And if we're trading and continuing to trade hours for dollars, then we're really just creating another job for ourselves. And more so because as an employee, all you're all you do as an employee is you deliver the results, right? You deliver, deliver, deliver. But when you're a business owner, there's all other aspects and then delivering those results. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who genuinely wants to help people but feels conflicted about charging high ticket, this video is going to change how you see pricing forever. And because the truth is, the biggest impact doesn't come from serving the most people, it comes from serving the right people at the right level. And that requires a mindset shift. So for a long time, I believed the same thing most heart-centered entrepreneurs believe. I thought that impact meant accessibility. I thought charging less meant being generous. I thought raising prices would somehow make me less authentic. So I underpriced. I over delivered. I undervalued myself and worked myself into exhaustion. And from the outside, it looked noble, but from the inside, it felt really heavy. Clients didn't implement, they didn't follow, they didn't listen as much, they didn't do the work, they didn't show up, right? Because they didn't have that vested interest. And I see this with all my clients. I have a client that is a speech therapist that I often refer to, and she was charging about $60 an hour. She couldn't get many clients, and then when she did get clients, they didn't show up because it was like, oh, maybe I'll go today, maybe I won't. She was trading time for money. And once we established her value and and the results that she gets for her clients, we determined that $3,000 for her service to help these people get the outcome that they were really desiring was a fair price. It was people were happy to pay it. It was just, and then they would show up because they had that vested interest. So they showed up, they did the work, they got the results. But when she was just trading her time for money at $60 an hour, right? Maybe they would come, maybe they wouldn't, and then she couldn't get them the results. So it was really doing them a disservice to charge so low. And then what else happens is the boundaries get blurred and then energy gets drained, right? You can't go deep with your clients if you're spread out too thin with amongst all these other people, right? But when you charge a higher price, right? Everybody's got bills to pay. You charge that higher price, you're able to pay your bills. It gives you more time freedom. And that allows you to go deeper with your clients to really get them that great result as well that you promised, right? And then when you're undercharging, the hardest part is, the people I wanted to help the most weren't actually changing. So that's really the hardest part. Again, back to that disservice. So that's when I realized something uncomfortable, but incredibly important. And that was low prices don't increase impact. They dilute it because price isn't just about money, right? Price is the filter. And filters determine who shows up, how they show up, and what's possible inside the container. So most people think high ticket pricing is about making more money. And it is, but it's also not. It's about protecting the depth of the work. And here's what no one tells you. When someone pays $10,000 or more, they don't just buy access, they buy commitment. They show up differently, they prioritize differently, they implement differently. They stop shopping for answers and they just start executing. And that changes everything. And this is where the real mindset shift begins. The impact and income, they're not opposites, they're directly correlated when pricing is aligned with the value. Okay. So the more income you generate, the more what time you save, energy you have, space you have, capacity you have to serve at that higher level. Does that make sense? If you're getting this and that makes sense, then put it in the comments here. Oh, actually, I'm not seeing the comments. So if you're here with me also live, you can give me a shout out. Just say, hey, where are my comments? Anyway, all good. I'll see them after. And if there's anything you want me to do a video on, let me know. Let me know if there's something specific where you're stuck or you're feeling overwhelmed or confused about your business that you want me to answer for you. Because I've been helping business owners since 1996. So over 20 years, I've seen it all. Can answer any of those questions for you. But let's go back to what we were talking about. It serves at a higher level, right? So underpricing, it doesn't make you more generous, it makes you unavailable. It forces you to juggle more clients, dilute your attention, and operate in a survival mode. And survival mode is really the enemy of impact. So here's the part that might sting just a little bit is if you're afraid to charge that high ticket, it's rarely about your audience. It's about your identity. You're living in their wallet. You think, oh, well, I maybe don't have that, so they might not have that type of thing, right? Or you might say, I don't want to exclude people. I hear that one a lot. Or I don't want to seem greedy. I don't want to be like those other coaches, right? But when you're serving people and you're giving them the value and you understand your value, you understand how to communicate your value effectively, right? Then that's where the change happens. But if you're feeling those things and you're thinking those things underneath, what's usually happening is that there's a deeper fear. What if I charge more and I'm not enough? Okay, that might be the fear. High ticket pricing doesn't just test your sales skills, it tests your self trust. It asks you to really fully own the value that you deliver without any apology. And that's why most people avoid it because it requires you to step out of the helper role and into this leader role. So let me be really clear about something. Charging tens of $1,000s does not mean that everyone should work with you. Okay. It means that the right people do. So high ticket offers are not designed for the masses. They're just not. They're designed for transformation, for people who really want that transformation. They're just sick and tired of dealing with whatever they're dealing with, and they want to transform and get that outcome, right? They're ready. So if your work changes lives, right, like businesses, identities, or trajectories, pricing low is actually out of integrity because you're asking people to invest casually in something that requires seriousness. So, price communicates expectation. And when the price is low, the expectation is low. And when the price is high, expectation rises for both of you. And that's where real results come from. So, here's what happens when you price low. Clients treat sessions like therapy instead of execution, right? They skip calls, they delay action, they stay stuck, not because they're bad people, but because the container doesn't demand transformation. Now, here's what happens when pricing is aligned. Clients prepare, they take responsibility, they implement fast, they own their outcomes, um, the work goes deeper, the conversations get sharper, the results just compound. And that's impact. And it only happens when the container is built for it. So this is why high ticket pricing, it's not about money. Okay? It's about creating the conditions for change. So now let's talk about the beliefs, okay, that charging high ticket limits your reach because This is one of the biggest myths in coaching. So if you charge $1,000, let's say, you might help 100 people a little. If you charge $10,000, you might help 10 people profoundly. And those 10 people go on to impact hundreds or thousands more, right? Depth creates this ripple effect. That's why I always say I help people because I help coaches, consultants, experts. They're usually out there in the world, like therapists and relationship coaches and um, wellness coaches, spiritual coaches, people like that, people that really help other people. They're really heart centered, really great people. They've just never learned how to market themselves, communicate their value effectively, how to do any type of marketing or sales and business, right? Who would know that? We're not taught that in school. So I help people. And having that depth really creates that ripple effects. And even my clients, right, they have that ripple effect too. So if I'm, my wellness coaches, of course, right? When they help people get well, that ripples out to their environment. It affects their family, right? Because they're getting healthy. They have more energy to maybe spend with their kids or have more intimacy with their partners or whatever it is, right? Or relationship coaches, again, ripples out because that's going to affect the couple, which could affect their kids, which affects their school. It just has this ripple effect when everybody's getting better. Does that make sense? So mass reach without that depth, it just creates noise. But true impact scales through transformation, not volume. And here's the part that most people miss: when you price your offer correctly, you actually become a better coach. You're more present, you're more grounded, more focused. You stop over giving from depletion and start serving from overflow. And that's when your best work emerges. Okay. High ticket pricing forces clarity. It forces you to really define your promise, refine your process, own your positioning. So you can't hide behind vagueness when that price is high. You have to be specific. And specificity is really the power. It's the secret power. And this is why the shift from making money to impacting millions is not about lowering prices, it's about raising standards. So for yourself, for your clients, for your work. And does that make sense? I hope so. Let's yeah, comment here if that makes sense for you or if you've got any questions. Now, let's address the integrity conversation directly because a lot of people worry that charging tens of thousands of dollars is unethical. And here's the truth: what's unethical is taking someone's time, hope, and energy without creating real change. That's really what's unethical. Like, what's unethical is selling transformation at a price point that doesn't support the transformation. So high ticket pricing, when it's done correctly, is one of the most honest exchanges that exist. It's really that. It's all that. It's an exchange of energy. It's exchange of the value that you're providing, right? It says this is serious work. This requires commitment. This will change you. And it gives you the resources to fully show up. If you've ever felt resentful towards clients, if you've ever felt drained after sessions, if you've ever questioned whether this is sustainable, that's not because you're doing it wrong. It's not because you're a bad person either, because a lot of people think, they go down this negative spiral. It's because your pricing is misaligned. And I hear this a lot with therapists. I work with a lot of therapists, and they are so burned out, and so sick and tired of dealing with insurance companies. A lot of people, therapists who have their private practice, they actually they thrive, they do better, they feel great, they last a long time in therapy, and that's who I work with. I teach and help therapists get into their own private practice so that they're not relying on BetterHelp or telehealth or all these things that pay peanuts and having to deal with insurance and all this stuff. It's draining, right? And it's because the pricing is misaligned with the value that they're providing. Now let's talk about the mindset shift that really unlocks these high ticket offers, the 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 plus offers. So you stop asking what can people afford. That's really the big shift. Like what can they afford? You're living in their pocket, like I said earlier, right? Because you don't know what these people can afford. You don't know if they've got $5,000 just in their purse right at that moment, right? They might have 10,000. You don't know. You absolutely don't know, right? What you have to start asking is, what is the value of the outcome that I provide? And I often say too, when there's a will, there's a way, right? So if somebody wants this transformation so badly and they're so sick and tired of it, and it's going to better their life in every way possible, probably, and probably affect their income in a positive way once they've dealt with whatever it is that they're dealing with. Uh, it um, it just shifts. It shifts that mindset, right? It's like, what's the value of the outcome that you're providing? So you stop pricing based on hours, like I said before. And even if you're giving packages, because I say that to a lot of people too, are you charging based on your hours, right? And then they tell me a price, and I say, well, how did you come up with that price? And they say, well, I charge $2,000. I'm like, well, why do you charge $2,000? And they say, well, because I figure it takes me, 10,000 or 10 hours at $200 or whatever. And I'm like, that's still trading for money, right? You don't base it on hours. You start pricing based on the impact that you provide. And there's a formula to figuring this out. I walk my clients through it, and we figure it out in about 3 weeks. 3 weeks we get to the actual price that their client would be willing to pay for that outcome. Okay, so you stop seeing money as something taken from clients, and you start seeing it as that fuel for the transformation. So money's not the enemy of impact. Okay, misalignment is. So when your pricing matches the depth of your work, everything just stabilizes. Your nervous system calms, your boundaries strengthen, your leadership sharpens, and your clients feel it. Do you believe that everything you put out, you get back, right? Whatever we're projecting, we're going to get back. So a lot of people try and fake it, but your clients can feel it, right? When it's genuine, when it's authentic. So this is why high ticket success isn't about confidence tricks. It's about congruence. People don't buy because you convince them. I hear that a lot too, like, "Oh, I just wish I could convince them." And it's like, "No, no, no, no. You don't need to convince somebody to do that, right? They buy because your certainty makes them feel safe. And certainty comes from alignment. Actually, I was just texting with a therapist the other day, or was it a therapist? Someone that reached out to me anyway. And, uh, and I asked in the DM, I said, "What do you feel like is missing?" And they said, "Confidence." And I said, "Well, what do you think you need for the confidence, right, to come?" And she said, "Well, I just need to sell a few things." And I was like, "No, no, no, no. This is backwards. You need that confidence ahead of time, because if you're projecting insecurity, those clients are not going to come. So that certainty comes from the alignment. So if you're still underpricing, you need to ask yourself this: are you really protecting your audience? Or are you protecting yourself from being fully seen? Because high ticket pricing asks you to stand in the fullness of your value. There's no hiding, there's no discounting, there's no over explaining, just ownership. And that ownership is magnetic. So now here's the part that most people don't expect. When you raise your prices, your business actually gets simpler. So fewer clients, deeper work, cleaner systems, stronger results. You stop chasing volume, but you start building this legacy. And this is how coaches impact millions, not by working with millions, but by elevating the work to a level where it just multiplies. So, high ticket pricing, it allows you to do that, right? It allows you to systemize delivery, automate support, and scale without like dilution, right? So you're no longer trading time for money, you're building an ecosystem around the transformation, and that's where freedom comes from. Okay, if you're listening to this and you're feeling like a mix of excitement and resistance, that's totally normal. Okay, So just check in. How do you feel? Are you feeling excitement and resistance? So that tension is the edge. It's the edge of your next level. High ticket pricing isn't it doesn't require arrogance. It requires responsibility and responsibility to your energy, to your time, your clients, your mission. And if your mission is to help people step into higher versions of themselves, then your pricing must reflect that too, because people rise to the level of what they invest in. So now I want to just bring this home actually. Impacting millions doesn't mean you have to sacrifice income. And making money doesn't mean you have to sacrifice integrity. The real shift is realizing that your pricing is part of the transformation. It sets that tone, the pace, the standard. And if you're ready to price your work in a way that honors both your mission and your mastery, then it starts with clarity. Clarity around your offer, clarity around your positioning, clarity around your systems, your process, right? Your mindset, first and foremost, your mindset. So having that clarity, and actually, that's where the confidence comes. The confidence comes from clarity. And that's why I offer a free strategy session and automation assessment. So what we'll look at if you want to, if you're up for that, if you want me to look at what you've got going on so far, we'll look at your current offer, your pricing, your positioning, where you're undercharging or overgiving, and we'll map out what really needs to shift so that you can scale with integrity without burning out or second guessing yourself. No pressure, no sales games or anything, just alignment. Right, and then if you want me to help you, if I can even help you, then we can talk about if we'd be a good fit to work together, and if we're a good fit to work together, then we can talk about that. But if you're interested in that, just click the link in the description to book your free assessment. And if this conversation helped you see pricing differently, put it in the comments below, subscribe. Let me know if you got a little shift there. But yeah, please subscribe, like this video, and comment if you got any insights, because I would love to know. Because the world doesn't need more exhausted coaches. It needs leaders who are resourced enough to create real change. Make sense? So if you like that, again, hit subscribe. And in our next video, we talk about how to, what did we talk about in our last video? We talked about how to automate everything. So check out that video there if you want to save more time and see how you can automate your systems and your business to scale. Then I will see you there in the next video.